Welcome back to another episode of Cobra Kai Kompanion, and I am Peter. Today, you guys, we have an incredible interview, one of the earlier ones because season 5 of Cobra Kai just released today, as a matter of fact. Joining me is Alicia Hannah-Kim, who plays Sensei Kim Da-Eun. How are you doing?
I'm doing so well. Thank you for having me, Peter.
Absolutely. Like it's quite an honor and a privilege, to be able to speak with you and, kind of pick your brain about the show. But I would like to learn about you. And that's the thing, like our listeners really enjoy as well, is finding more backstory about the actors themselves. So you are from Sydney.
Yes.
And what was that like growing up? Because I believe I read that you were also like, you took some theater earlier on.
Yes. I mean, growing up in Australia is the literal best. I could not be more thankful to have been born in Australia and be Australian, be a little, suburban Aussie kid growing up, going to the beach. And, Australia is incredibly safe and outdoorsy, multicultural. I had a really amazing time growing up in Australia. So I really miss it a lot. And I try to go back as much as I can.
I run a Facebook group, for the podcast, but it is a community. We call ourselves the Kompanions, obviously, but two of my moderators are from Australia, one of which is actually from Sydney as well.
Woo!
So there you go.
Yeah,
and they were really excited to hear that you're, one of them. So when did you decide that you want to get into acting? Were you always like a bit of a performer? Did you do anything else like music?
Yeah, it didn't really occur to me when I was younger. I was just, a regular kid going to school. I definitely did music. I mean, I'm Korean, so I did piano and flute. I was in the school band. I did flute. I did violin for a little while, which never let your kid learn violin if they're bad at it, because it's just like sound. So I was very musical. I learned all of, the required instruments for band in school, and I loved it. But yeah, I started going to ATYP, which is the Australian Theatre for Young People in Sydney. And I started that sort of towards the end of high school. And I think it was sort of really there that I understood that it was something that really meant a lot to me and that I wanted to pursue. But I was never sort of hell-bent when I was a kid. I think it really came later. And I also think it's a really intimidating dream or profession to pursue, because it is so difficult. It can be so difficult. And so yeah, I was always quite daunted and secretive about it.
I would love to see something where you and Thomas do something together.
Yes, I loved working with Thomas this season. My first scene was with him, and I met him in the van over to the airfields, and he was just so unfailingly kind and warm. And I have so much respect for how Thomas lives his life. He's a real Renaissance man. He's a musician. He's a writer. And he has this beautiful, beautiful wife, Mary, and they have a wonderful family. And I think he's a really sort of well-rounded man, gentleman.
Yeah, he really is. I got the opportunity to speak with him last year, but then earlier this year over at Paley Fest, and I did see Mary kind of behind the scenes while I was working the red carpet. And when I spoke with Thomas on the red carpet, I pointed him out to my cameraman Ken Cole, who also runs a YouTube channel of his own. And at that point, since he stepped out of the frame, Ralph and Billy thought that it was their turn to come over. But I asked everyone to take a picture after I spoke with them. So I didn't get one with Thomas. But later that evening, I actually bumped into him and Mary at a restaurant, coincidentally. So I was able to get a picture after all. But
he's such a gentleman, and he's so kind and warm and incredibly talented. I love that they brought him back, and he got to continue a character that he played when he was, I believe 29, 30. And so what an incredible journey for him as an artist.
Absolutely. You mentioned you played a variety of instruments. Did you also take martial arts?
You know, I didn't. That's the one thing that I didn't do when I was younger. I did a lot of dance though. So, you know, I remember doing ballet and a bit of tap, and, you know, I cross country running, which I believe is distance running in America. You know, swimming. In Australia, everybody's very physical, very sporty. So I was always really engaged in that. But for some reason, I didn't do taekwondo, although my brother did. And so I remember sort of sitting on the sidelines, and maybe I was too young, but I was watching him sort of break boards and, you know, wear the white gi, and, you know, I loved it, but for some reason I didn't do it. When I moved to LA, I started training in Muay Thai, which is Thai kickboxing, and that's a very intense sport. And so I did have some confidence going into the training that I would be able to handle myself. I think sort of blissfully ignorant and positive about that, because the training was obviously very intense, and but I loved it. That was, you know, that's the best part of being Cobra Kai, is getting to fight people.
Absolutely. No, yeah, you mentioned Muay Thai. I believe when Tori was introduced, she mentions a little bit of kickboxing, so a lot of elbows and knees, and yeah. So you have previously worked on other stuff. I'm not familiar with the show Minx. Is that something still going on as well?
I believe Minx has been picked up for a second season. I'm not sure. I was filming that at the same time that I was doing Cobra Kai. So I was going back and forth. I was shooting one episode of Minx and then coming in and shooting Cobra Kai, and then flying back to shoot more Minx, and then flying back to shoot Cobra Kai. So for me, it was like a really epic time. It was very hectic, but I, at the same time, was getting to play these two sort of iconic, powerful women, very, very different. And yet somewhat similar in that they're both inhabiting this antagonist role in the story. It's just that Wendy Ma and Minx does it with a smile, and Kim Da-Eun does it with a punch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And kicks and even hits with a bamboo stick. Yeah. No.
It's a bamboo stick. Also, the little weapon that she has on the end of her hair, it's like a little accessory that she uses. I mean, I think she uses everything she has to her advantage. So I think having even just a little accessory on the end of her ponytail, she knows she can use that in a lethal way as well. She's very resourceful. She's a MacGyver.
Say that last part again.
She's a MacGyver. She's using.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I'll get to my comment, but yeah, Frank Helmer, just like everything that you wear on Cobra Kai, just it looks fantabulous. Now I don't know if this is part of wardrobe, but your earrings when you step off of the, I was like, when I first watched it, I was able to get a screener, so I saw it ahead of time. I was like, is she gonna use those as weapons? Like those could be like some sort of like picks, you know? So immediately I thought lethal, just based off of the earrings alone. Can you talk about like your style on the show?
Frank did an incredible job. Frank is a wardrobe designer, and he was very enthusiastic when I first showed up, and I wasn't really sure what to expect. And he put me in this beautiful sort of, you know, suit pants and heels, and this beautiful belted sort of vest, and it's sort of emblematic of a gi. And then with the accessories, you know, obviously Kim Da-Eun is not someone that is, you know, interested, I think, really in that sort of that side of life. But I agree that whatever she is wearing is a potential weapon. And so that sort of clean line of the earring and her cuff could be like a Wonder Woman cuff that she uses as a block. She could pull one of those out and use it as a dagger. I think, you know, everything that she wears is constructed for a purpose. And Frank really understood that, and so crafted such a beautiful look for her. So I was really lucky.
Yeah, I can't wait to speak with him again to kind of get his thoughts as well on his decisions on what to have you wear. You mentioned that you were filming both Minx and Cobra Kai simultaneously. What was the like audition process for you to get Cobra Kai? Like how did you even get involved with the project?
So this was during pandemic. It was still the pandemic, and everything. So actors usually go in the room and audition with the casting director, and you go through this whole process to get a job. But obviously during pandemic, that all went digital. And so we were all self-taping at home. And so for both Minx and Cobra Kai, I was self-taping it at home. And at first, I was not aware what the show was for Cobra Kai because it's so secretive and popular that they use dummy names. And so they had a different name for the show. So I wasn't aware what it was. I was just struck by the character, the way that they described her walking off of this private jet with this immediate air of just fierceness and disdain for the circumstances, and immediately being rooted in her power against a formidable ally and foe, Terry Silver. You know, for me, as a Korean person, it struck me that she was so infused with this force of this power. So I was struck by the character. I was immediately hooked on that. And yeah, I didn't really know what it was for until much later in the process. And I ended up booking both Minx and Cobra Kai on the same day. So it was very hectic. And Minx was shooting the following day. So I was immediately on set there. And while I was on set filming, I got a call during in between takes from my representatives that said that, okay, so Cobra Kai is going to work with the Minx schedule, and we're going to have you do both at the same time, which I really have to thank both productions for allowing me to do that, because it is a scheduling nightmare. And I'm really grateful we were able to work that out. But yeah, I got a lot of miles going back and forth between LA, and I really had like my routine down. You know, I had like my little snacks on the plane. I would watch Cobra Kai going over, and, you know.
That's what I was about to ask. Like, what does Alicia do on these plane flights? Because it sounds like you did a lot of them.
Yeah, I watched Cobra Kai a lot. I slept because some of those plane rides back were quite early in the morning. And I was reading scripts and lines back and forth because the schedule was very tight. And the worlds couldn't have been more different. You know, Minx is set in this sort of 70s publishing world, and it's very fashiony and very witty and feminist, and you know, there's a lot of great powerful feminine energy over there. And then on Cobra Kai, it's just like you're in the dojo and there's like male senseis everywhere, and there's teenagers running around screaming, and you know, so there's very different energies. But like I said, I felt as an actor felt really empowered that I got to play two characters that were, I feel, iconic.
Yeah, I would say that. Again, I'm not familiar with Minx, but it's on HBO Max, correct?
It's on HBO Max, yeah.
Yeah. Now that Cobra Kai is out, I'll let the fandom kind of do their thing, and I'm going to go watch. Just take a little break, you know, let everyone catch up to me. You know how many times I've watched season 5, but I'm going to check out Minx.
Yeah, please do. It's a wonderful show. It's so well written, laugh out loud, funny. The actors are brilliant. Yeah, it's fantastic. If Cobra Kai fans want to take a break, which I don't think they do because they love Cobra Kai. I mean, just like on a day off, if you need something else, then that's there for you. But by all means, stay in the Valley and watch Cobra Kai also, because we love that.
Depending on which episode you want to stop at, it might be a little heavy. So you can probably use some comedy, some levity for Minx, I feel.
That's true.
Yeah.
Episode 10 is very intense. I was talking with someone else previously to this about how the Chosen and Silver fight is just so deeply emotional, and the stakes are so high, and everybody loves those characters so much. And so I think Cobra Kai fans are really in for the roller coaster on season 5.
Yes, absolutely. And it's like that for every season. I've spoken with Yuji a number of times. I actually went to go visit him maybe about a month ago at his restaurant up in Seattle. And I've had a theory ever since, like prior to season 3, because I'm a big Chosen fan. I'm a huge Chosen fan. I love the Karate Kid Part 2. I tell people all the time, like when I was a little kid, it was very rare to watch a movie with faces that look like mine, you know, and Chosen was a bad guy, but he reminded me a lot of my uncle, you know, kind of charming, dangerous, you know, so I was like, Chosen's kind of like my uncle. But so I welcomed his return in part. Had this theory, I won't get too far into it, but my theory, and then when season 5 came back up and we saw that very first trailer where we see the back of your head and your hair, like, oh, who's that? And again, that theory came back up. I go, it kind of makes sense. Chosen's gonna die. I don't want it, you know. And they really fooled us, didn't they? Like
Yeah.
I really thought that it was gonna happen.
It's very easy to have red herrings for Cobra Kai fans because everybody's so invested and everybody has their favorites. But I will say I love your story about having Chosen as a touchstone of representation for you, because I was talking about this with someone else about how, you know, for us, the minute we see an Asian person in a show or a movie, we know instantly who they are because we grab onto them, you know, and we research who they are and what they're doing and, you know, who they're playing, what other work that they've done. And that just highlights how significant representation is for BIPOC people. So I hope even me just being in the show can be a touchstone to like a young Asian girl somewhere, and just seeing her own face on screen is really healing and very meaningful.
I think it will. I have two daughters. One is 20, and I would love to get her thoughts on your character.
Yeah.
And you know, like I said, I kind of grew up on these movies, so I'm Miyagi-Do, but
That's
season
okay.
5, okay, I
We
have Logan
forgive.
on my tattoo on my arm too, but season 5 and all the marketing leading up to it, like I was, you know, like I don't know, I was kind of questioning my allegiance. Like those commercials look good. They got some really badass senseis, and like I really love the way your character is written, and also kudos to, I mean, it's also your performance, but also first and foremost, congratulations. It's currently 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and you got to feel proud about that.
I'm not surprised because I have a lot of trust in the big three, and this cast is just stellar. So I'm really happy for everybody involved to have that validation. And I would say the Cobra Kai fan is just so well taken care of by the writers, by the actors, by the world. And you know this, obviously, having met so many of the casts, it's just how genuine everyone is. So I think it couldn't happen to better people. I'm thrilled to be a part of it. I'm glad that, you know, the critics seem to like it, and long may it continue. You know, it's such a rich universe. There's so many stories to explore.
Absolutely. So how, I know we're not, we don't have too much more time. I kind of want to briefly ask, like, what is your history with the Karate Kid? Because your character is brand new and it's kind of legacy adjacent, right? Because your grandfather is this kind of mythical legend, so to speak, from the third movie, and we've known very little about him until this season.
Yeah, I really like that term, legacy adjacent. You're really good with the terms, Peter. I like that. We've got the big three, we've got legacy adjacent. I love that.
Thank you.
Look, you know, I think we've had a lot of time exploring Miyagi-Do, which is, you know, descended from Japan. And, you know, with Cobra Kai, it's always been a little touch mysterious. We haven't ever seen Kim Sun-young in person. We don't have an idea of his family, or we just have this sort of tidbits that Kim Sun-young taught Captain Turner during the Korean War, and then Captain Turner subsequently taught Terry Silver and John Kreese during the Vietnam War. And that is what is distilled down into this feud in the Valley and this, you know, 30-year conflict between Johnny and Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that what's great about any kind of future storyline is that there's so much to unpack with the origin of Cobra Kai, the true origin of Cobra Kai. And also just, you know, geopolitically, there's a lot of history between Japan and Korea and the United States. And I find that really fascinating that we can have those represented in the dojos. We can have it represented through the generations in these characters. It's really epic. I had not seen The Karate Kid before I had booked the show. I've since watched it. Amazing, adorable, we love. It's really fun for me, having met Billy and Ralph as adults, to watch them when they were younger. And it was like such a trip for me. I did it all backwards. Like I film, then I finish the series, then I watch the movies, and then I'm, you know, having a reverse journey than the average Cobra Kai fan. But yeah, I think there's a lot to explore, and what can I say? I hope it continues.
I hope so too. Definitely crossing my fingers to see a return, because I don't think it's over for the Cobras at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I do kind of like your experience, the whole backwards thing. It's a very unique one, and I wish I would be able to experience something that different. That, because like the first film is a huge classic, and so and Mr. Miyagi is so iconic, right? So to be able to kind of watch Cobra Kai and be familiar with Ralph and Billy now, and to go see them as like teenage kids, and it's just like,
I was so moved. I was so moved to see them young and in this big movie, and they're both so wonderful in it. And yeah, it's very on brand for me personally. I will say I started watching Game of Thrones in season 5, so I'm a huge Johnny come lately to anything. So personally on brand for me, terrible for the average Cobra Kai fan, I'm sure, to digest this new information. But I'm very sorry, and I have now caught up. So I'm all there, and I join you all in standing the universe.
Well, I think I joined Game of Thrones season 4, so not too far ahead of you. But also, I still haven't seen Squid Game, and I've been getting a lot of flack for that. Yeah. I know Hannah told me that you're into like the K-pop and all this stuff too, Korean dramas.
I love all of it. It's all just excellence. It's Korean excellence right now around the world. Squid Game will be a great watch for you. Actually, kind of envy you because you get to watch it for the first time. I went through a journey watching that. It was so frightening, and it's just on the edge of my seat, and then also just being so proud that they would make something so singular and successful. Is just a tribute to the deep creativity of the Korean people. I think right now we are really in a golden age, and across music and fashion and food and dramas, we're really getting to express ourselves in a way that is unprecedented, and I feel very, very proud of that.
Yeah, no, this is a bit of a joke, but I feel you guys helped Asians start trending, with like BTS and all these things. I grew up and we were jokes in cinema, like cameras, so
right.
Yeah.
No, and certainly also in my career, I've played those minority roles that were not important, that were not nuanced, that were stereotypical, and certainly that impacted me as the performer. Definitely made me feel sidelined. In something like this, as Kim Da-Eun in Cobra Kai, I feel really blessed that I'm part of a story that is so rich and so layered and meaningful, and that my character is infused with so much significance in that wider story. And so getting to express yourself like that as a performer is rare. Certainly for BIPOC performers, it can be rare. So I feel very thankful to the big three for creating this and encouraging that journey. Representation means everything to me. I had the very good fortune of meeting Michelle Yeoh a couple of days ago. And while internally I was falling apart, I did manage to articulate to her that for me, watching her on screen when I was younger was a touchstone for me as much as you watching Chosen on screen, and you see yourself represented back to you, and you see a possibility of you in that landscape as well. It's also really healing, and to see those authentic faces in media. And I think, representation is our big goal, as artists that are out there working today. I mean, for me, I remember Frank saying to me in my first wardrobe fitting, he goes, "Oh no," because again, I was new and I was very sort of blissfully ignorant. He was like, "No, you don't understand. Like, someone's going to dress up as you for Halloween. Like, a little girl is going to dress up as you." And I looked at it. It was just a regular wardrobe fitting for me, and I was like, "Do you really think so?" I don't think so. I don't think so. And now I'm like, "Oh my God! If one young girl dresses up as me for Halloween, I will cry." I will legit cry. So,
If we
you
find
know,
pictures, we will tag you on Twitter.
please tag
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
Please tag me. I would love to see it. I can't imagine, I was already sort of beside myself seeing mini Kim Da-Eun, played by this lovely young actress, Sarah Ann, and she just nailed it. And seeing her in the pink gi sort of bouncing around while Kreese and Silva were training was just so special to me.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk to you for hours, and I know you got to get going here. If I can just kind of ask one more question, I wanted to ask more about the relationship between Silver, because there's just some very lines that you say that kind of make you like, what's behind that? But I kind of like, if you could just talk about like Sensei Kim and Tori during the like a punishment scene. I don't know what else you want to call that. Kind of just your insight on you like as a person and kind of viewing that sequence.
Yeah, that's the climactic sort of penultimate moment where Tori is pushed past her limit, and it's really a deal breaker for her. It's a straw that breaks the camel's back. For me, for our characters, I think we were headed for that collision all season long. We had this very sort of toxic dynamic of me pushing her and molding her and forcing her to be the darkest version of herself in a sort of misconstrued effort to find strength. I mean, regular me is like, that's misconstrued, but for Kim Da-Eun, that is the only way. That is the only way that you are able to exist in the world, and that furthers that no mercy creed that is so ingrained in her, just in her heritage. As an actor, I was very apologetic to Peyton because what I put her through this season is just awful. And I was constantly hugging Una and Peyton and just, trying to be, take care of them in between takes because I'm terrible to them. And luckily we have such a light, friendly atmosphere that I think it was okay. But certainly that scene was climactic, and I love the music. I think that the composers, Zach and Leo, did such an incredible job of just heightening the stakes there. And as a viewer, I mean, doing the scene, of course, you're in it, and so you just sort of are in another space. But when I was watching the scene much later, I was shocked by how dark it was and how it really got under her skin, and seeing the ways that I knew how to push her buttons, and the pleasure that Kim Da-Eun takes in knowing that she pushed her past her limit. I think it's a reflection also of what Kim Da-Eun herself has been through in her training to become who she is. Because let's not forget, in episode 7, when we see Sarah Ann as Kim Da-Eun, she's wearing this really sweet pink gi and sort of just innocently playing while watching Terry and Kreese train. And so when I saw that, I was so touched, because I thought, even Kim Da-Eun at some point was just an innocent girl, and what happened to her that deformed her into this controlled, extreme, fanatical version of herself. What has driven her to this point. So I think what she puts Tori through is a rite of passage that I'm sure she herself was put through as well.
Yeah, I bet. Even though, again, I'm kind of more of the Miyagi-Do, just your lines and the things that you can extrapolate from those lines and kind of paint a picture of what you think she is, prior to us seeing her in Cobra Kai, it's hard to not respect that,
Yeah.
respect her as a
I
sensei.
understand why you're Miyagi-Do. They have a great garden. I got asked on the red carpet at the premiere, like, which dojo would you be in? I was like, well, me personally, I'd like to be Miyagi-Do too, because that Zen garden is gorgeous. And I'd like to sit on that little balance board. And it just seems really just, good vibes, good energy. Cobra Kai is very extreme,
I know exactly what you mean, because I did get a chance to visit the set prior to filming season 3. And I stood in that room with the Miyagi picture. It was like being in a temple,
Oh, it's so calming.
Yeah.
It's very relaxing and supportive. Cobra Kai is all about, just competition, no mercy, and just like there's no room for error. It's unforgiving. There's no nuance. But Miyagi is just very much like, come as you are, give you a hug and sit on the balance bar. I love that. That seems like a good place to be.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry to get up much of your time, but thank you so much for carving out the time to speak with me today. Just real quick, where can if people don't already follow you, you're a great follow. You know, your training videos and comments on television shows. Where can people follow you on Instagram and Twitter?
On Instagram, I'm at the Alicia Hannah. On Twitter, which is my worst habit. I love Twitter so much. Twitter, just Alicia Hannah. And I really try to respond to everyone. You know, at first I was sort of on the like and the respond because I really appreciate everybody's support. So I was really trying. But if I don't do that going forward, it's not my fault.
You're busy.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, you're a busy person. So
Yes.
And with that, I want to thank everybody for tuning into this, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you, Peter. It was lovely. Bye.
Thank you.